Namaste, guys. This is In Cyanosis with Quantum Healing Consciousness at healingroots.life. How goes it, guys? How are you? And most importantly, right? Like, how do you feel right now, in this moment, in your body, where you are? How do you feel? It's so imperative to navigating our reality, right? Being aware of how we feel in our bodies. Are you even in your body? Do you embody your body? Are you comfortable taking up space, and breathing fully in to your very being? One thing about emotions, energies and motions, right, is they're cumulative. They can be, and they can fester into like traumas, right? So when we're talking quantum healing, all things quantum, everything is energy, right? Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. However, it can be transmuted, right, and transferred. And when we are dealing with an emotion, right, albeit a trapped emotion or an emotion from some experience currently that we're going through or having or dealing with, or however you want to look at it, right? Like, we can only access the language that's within that spectrum of energy associated to the emotion, so we can spiritually bypass, right? And we can law of attraction all damn day long, but if we have a suppressed, trapped emotion that we are unaware of, that's what's setting our magnetism, guys. So, and we are all bound by an invisible field of energy. And that connection is called love, Dr. Joe Dispenza. So, do you currently reside in love, or are you anchoring into a fear mode? And this is so crucial. So if we are magnetized, if our subconscious emotional baseline, if the amalgamation of that part of the Freud iceberg that's under the water, right? That's where we're magnetized, our subconscious, our unconscious. If we're magnetized to experiences that do not feel harmonious, or that, we experience contrast, then that's directly connected to a suppressed emotion or some aspect that you've rejected, denied, disowned, about ourself, and that it's laying dormant, that's festering, and then we align to those types of situations, right? So if we're in fear mode, then we're in mental fuckery mode, right? We're in our mind, we're creating from our mind, and we're not embodying our body or navigating through our sovereignty. We're not breathing deeply enough to get into our physical being, right? So I'm going to quote some references from Dr. Bradley Nelson, The Emotion Code, and from the book Complex PTSD From Surviving to Thriving by Dr. Pete Walker. So, what are some things that we can be looking at when we deal with trapped emotions? So, the doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will interest his patients in the care of the human frame, in diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease. Thomas Edison. So, well, what's could be the cause of disease, right? Disease or states out of ease with harmony, right? So, these states give rise to trapped emotions. And if we aren't dealing with them, if we're not moving them, if they're just, festering, then they can close off our energy bodies and give rise to, physical manifestations of disease and disorders and illness and the like. So these are some of the things that can lead to trapped emotions. Of course, there's childhood trauma, right? And even having a normal, quote unquote, normal childhood is the perfect environment, especially a normal American childhood, right? In a society that is toxic as a baseline, that, the norm is to suppress emotions, then yeah, that can definitely be the perfect environment through which trauma to manifest. But also going through a divorce, or having like relationship problems. Do you struggle to, have a relationship that's not chaotic, that's not stemmed and emotional, even if it's not abusive, right? Even if you're not experiencing abuse, do you struggle to have, stability and coherence and honest, open, transparent, authentic dynamics within relationships, albeit with lovers, friends, family, etc. So, do you struggle with feelings of inferiority? Have you experienced financial hardships? Do you have stress at your home or stress at your work, right? So when we're in stress mode, guys, we're in that sympathetic nervous system dominance, and we're out of attunement with our mind, body, heart cohesion, you could say. When we're in stress mode, our immune system is shut off because our mind and body, they think we're running from a saber-toothed tiger, and the subconscious mind becomes the body, guys. Dr. Joe Dispenza, the subconscious mind becomes the body. So, do we struggle with internalization of feelings? Is if someone around you is having a moment or exhibiting, like anger or jealousy or whatever it is that they're going through in their individual reality, do you internalize their feelings and take them on as your own, right? Do you have long-term stress? Have you experienced if I was raised in, lower middle class, you could say poverty type settings, and I've lived and resided within poverty for many years of my life. So that in and of itself can create long-term stress if you're living in lack and you're on survival mode and you don't know how you're going to pay your rent next month and you struggle to make your car payment or even putting food on the table, to feed your family, your children. That's long-term stress in and of itself. That's the epitome, right, of struggling with stress. And that is a real valid emotion. Those are a lot of emotions there that can become trapped and fester, right? So, have you experienced loss of a loved one? Have you had a miscarriage or an abortion? Do you harbor negative feelings about yourself or others? Now, do you struggle with toxic inner critic? Like, the struggle is real, guys, and there's no joke about that, right? So when we struggle with toxic inner critic and our mind is continually, perpetuating these ideals that does not feel good, right? But then we kind of beat ourselves up for everything that we're not or that we think we're not, or maybe because of our past choices or whatever. We struggle with a toxic inner critic, negative self-talk. So do you neglect or abandon yourself? And did you struggle with that as a child, like childhood abandonment? Just even abandoning your own feelings in any given moment, like, do you put your emotions on pause and suppress them to avoid conflict? Do you bite your tongue? Maybe you're having a feeling or a need in this now moment, but you kind of put a pin in it because it would just create more conflict in your relationships to express that right now. So you push it down, suppress it. You don't deal with it, in lieu of it dissipating, but only for something else to trigger it, right, in your external reality, thus perpetuating the cycle. So Do you have physical illness, or have you been taking care of a loved one with a physical illness? Like that too can create stress in our body, emotional body, energy body, physical body, etc. So, are we dealing with physical or emotional combat, like living in victim, aggressor, savior paradigm, being victimized, right? Like, and again, I'm not invalidating these experiences because the struggle is real. As someone who spent a lot of years, a decade, in mental, physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. Like, the struggle is real, guys, and it can accumulate trauma that can become compounded, okay? So, physical traumas. Have you experienced physical traumas? Have you broken bones or had to go through varying surgeries where you spent a lot of time, a downtime where you've had to take care of your body and heal your body back to health, but maybe never addressed the emotions of that time, And again, experience physical, mental, verbal, or sexual abuse? Or do you struggle with rejection issues? Have you been rejected? And these were just some the Secret World of Trapped Emotions from page 25 on the book The Emotion Code. Those are some things that we can look at, guys. So, when we look at gaps in our auric field, areas of where we can be malleable, hijackable to someone else's emotional or verbal manipulation, or hijacking our own inner critic, right? Like our external reality, we could be met with an experience to where it triggers us from some subconscious emotion that we've rejected, denied, disowned, that keeps us out of harmony with unconditional self-love in this now moment. But we're triggered in any given manner, and now it's raising to the surface, and that inner critic is on full force, and you're in monkey mind, right? Like, these gaps in our auric field are through the areas through which we are malleable, and it comes through like our beliefs, our emotions, our desires, our passions, and our intentions, like are they in coherence, or are we dealing with like coping mechanisms, or like auto accommodating through some 4F stress response, and fight, flight, freeze, fawn. My go-to was vacillating between freeze and fawn, but I can exhibit all four in any given manner, right? So these are the things that we can look at. Are your beliefs in alignment with your emotions, in coherence with your desires, in attunement with your passions, and in the harmonic, you could say energetic, vibrational harmony with your intentions in this now moment? Or are you struggling with like an inner critic attack, right? And so these are some things that we can look at. Do you struggle with perfectionism? Do you have like black and white thinking, all or none thinking, right? Do you struggle with self-hate or self-disgust and toxic shame, right? That in and of itself is a the struggle is real, right? Like, do you micromanage? Are you constantly worrying, obsessive, and looping over futurizing, like worrying about, the next several years, but not focusing, being present in your now moment, right? Like projecting forward some future timelines and obsessing over that versus being in this now moment, embodying this now, where, everything you need, you have in this now moment, right? And you are well. Do you struggle with, feeling unfair or devaluing, comparisons to others or to your most perfect moments? Are you constantly like comparing your life to other people around you and feeling like you should be this and you should be that, or it should be yada yada, Do you struggle with guilt, right? Do you struggle with guilt? Like, do you feel guilty for something that you've gone through in your past, or, or just, do you harbor guilt, right? So are you stuck in the shoulding? Like, I should do this, or I should do that, or this should be this way, right? Are you overproductive? Are you a workaholic, a busyholic? Are you stuck in that human doing versus human being? The struggle is real, guys, right? So are you in harsh judgment of yourself or others? Or do you struggle with name calling, even not spoken, right? Like, do you view someone? Are you like on Instagram or social media, and can you catch your inner critic stepping forth and judging someone else's being or life or body, right? And then internalizing that judgment on yourself, because that's just showing you, what you're struggling with internally, right? And these are just all ideas, you could say. These are all stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves that pull us out of harmony with unconditional self-love, right? Which pulls us out of harmony with true connection. Intimacy is into me I see, right? Like, are you really being intimate with yourself, guys? Are you really being intimate with yourself? So these inner critic scenarios or inner critic attacks is taken out of Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving, Dr. Pete Walker, page 169, 170, and 171. So, these are just some of the things that we can look at. When we talk about true quantum healing, and we're looking at becoming aware of our patterns, becoming aware of our inner dichotomies, like how we speak to ourselves and what we are, subconsciously magnetized to, where our unconscious emotional baseline pulls us into, and becoming aware of our codes, like where am I in my not self themes? What triggers me into frustration? Like, I'm a generating manifester, heretic investigator. That's true authority is an emotional authority. I run off of 3 to 4 motors at any given times in all directions, and I'm constantly go go go, and I'm all about research, study, and things fall in my lap and they come to me. And the more I am in tune or in harmony with my innate sovereignty, owning my truth, owning my shit, being aware of my patterns, being aware of where I'm triggered through frustration, which is my not self theme, right? The more that I can integrate that pattern, rewrite my code, and walk more in the attunement, or you could say the alignment of my signature, which is satisfaction, and I thoroughly prefer to feel satisfied to frustrated, like who doesn't? But, yours could very well be like bitterness, or, bitterness and, when you're triggered into bitterness, you're pulled out of your harmony, right? Like, or anger and peace, or whatever it is individually for you, right? And the more that we can identify these things and close in these gaps in our auric field, and it really does help to know where you are, cellularly deficient. Like for me, knowing that I am a Leo sun, Leo moon, Aries rising, I burn up that magnesium phosphate and that kali phosphate. Like, I'm innately lacking that magnesium. For Leo, that spasmodic nervous system response, right? Like, that's my magnetism, you could say. And if I'm deficient in my magnetism, then I'm moody and irritable and cranky, and I feel pain in my body differently, right? But if I'm overcompensating for that deficiency with taking magnesium, like St. John's wort's a great magnesium. This is just examples, right? Or spinach. I'm putting extra spinach, especially if I know the sun or moon or any of the other 5 major planetary bodies are currently in Leo or Aries, and then Aries, it's that phosphate. So a deficiency in that or burning that up more, then I know that I'm going to be exhibiting more irritability and, ADHD type, obsessive type, those mental issues, right? You could say. So then my thinking will not be as coherent. So just knowing where we are malleable, knowing where we are sensitive on all formats, it plays a big part in closing those gaps in our energy body, our healing our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual bodies, and closing the gaps to our malleability from being triggered and manipulated by, these energies in which you cannot perceive with your human eye, but has been written about for thousands of years, right? And even Dr. Joe Dispenza has a 15-minute video on demons, archons, lower vibratory entities, right? Disincarnate humans. Like go to YouTube, type in Dr. Joe Dispenza demons and listen to it for yourself, because he speaks of it using science, right? And it's the reason that the military no longer uses red lenses for their night vision. So, these are just some things that we can look at, right, guys? Now, increasing our mindfulness decreases our unconscious 4F reactivity, okay? And it helps to shrink our toxic inner critic. And as our brain becomes more user friendly, right? As we begin to truly grieve for the childhood losses and we begin to build our emotional intelligence, right? As we begin feeling comfortable embodying our body, taking up space in our body, and we learn to feel like allowing our body to relax, and in doing so our mind becomes more peaceful. We mature, emotionally. Our ego matures, right? We get into healthy ego and we start to embody a healthy sense of self, and as our life narrative becomes more self-compassionate, self-forgiving, self-aware, and self-affirming, and as our emotional vulnerability creates a more authentic expression, right? And we begin to experience intimacy a little different because we're truly being intimate with ourselves, right? Like, into me, I see. And we begin to attain the good enough safe relationships. We can discern through incongruencies. We can feel when something does not feel safe in a relationship, because we can be aware of the incongruencies, guys. So, these are just some things to look at. And, we can go back and do like exercises to do conscious breathing, deep cellular breathing, to flip our dorsal vagal nerve valve, right? So that we can get into our body and breathe deep enough that our pineal gland is able to convert that DMT into serotonin so that we feel happy and joyful and have a great experience, right? Because serotonin, that's that antidepressant, right? A lot of the SSRI antidepressants are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. And then also for the DMT and the pineal gland to convert, again, they're one molecule off from DMT to serotonin and serotonin to melatonin. Like, check into that. It's very interesting science. The Science of the Sacred Secretion by Victoria Loa Liu. I will go back and loop these books and references after this is done recording. So then we're producing enough melatonin through deep cellular breathing. It takes oxygen, guys. We have to be breathing deep enough oxygen so that, our blood, like, let's say that especially the Pisces cell salt, right? That works with, it's the feeling body, but that it's iron phosphate, and it's the little oxygen carriers. It's the red corpuscles in the blood that carries and delivers oxygen to every organ and every cell in the body. And if we're not breathing deep enough and taking in enough oxygen, and we're deficient in the Pisces cell salt through birth or through, guys, stress and worry, whether you're deficient in Pisces as a part of your capstone, your innate 3 to 4, that you're lacking deficiency or lacking balance, then worry and stress, when you are in worry mode, or if you are in stress mode, if the majority of your 24-hour day is in sympathetic nervous system dominance, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, hypervigilance, anticipatory stress, that kind of thing, then you're going to be depleted in all 12, right? So if we're not breathing deep enough, and if we have cellular gaps and imbalances, then our pineal gland is not producing enough serotonin, and then it's not producing enough melatonin. So we're not feeling good during our days, and we sure as hell ain't sleeping good at night, right, guys? So these are some things that we can look at, and then we can start addressing, becoming aware of the stories we're telling ourselves about ourselves and the world around us, become aware of the meaning that we are assigning to these stories that we are telling ourselves, that either they turn into beliefs, and our beliefs can be detrimental or they can be beneficial, and etymology, which is the science of language, right? The study of language, etymology is etymology, because abracadabra, I create through my speech. I create what I speak, as above, so below, as within, so without, the tongue being mightier than the sword. So where am I focused? What am I thinking? How am I speaking to myself internally? How am I speaking to the world around me? How am I loving myself in this now moment? Because it is indicative of how others love us, okay? So if you're being met in your external reality through experiences that feel like contrast, that don't feel loving, that feel more chaotic or stressful, right? That's toxicity, love. Where are you not giving yourself the unconditional love and acceptance that you are innately worthy of and deserving of? Because that's going to be the key, guys. So, as the sun hits the equinox, I think tomorrow, and falls below the equator, and we shift into Libra, it's all about harmony, guys. And Mars is still in retrograde. So Mars is showing us, right, where are we at war with ourselves, right? Well, let's look at, what are we at war with in our external reality? What are you forcing? Where are you in force, right? Where are you in force that's pulling you out of your power? What are you at war with externally? What are you fighting against in your external reality? Because that is only reflecting back to you where you are at war internally. So now's the time to become unapologetically, unconditionally self-loving, right? And start anchoring into those beliefs that feel good and beneficial to you in this now moment. And you're entitled to change your mind, guys. So dissolve the shadow contracts with yourself. Become aware of where you have shadow contracts with yourself. One of the biggest ones for me personally is having to learn to dissolve all shadow contracts where I held my teenage or child self accountable to know things she was incapable of knowing, and having to release all that guilt and shame associated to choices I made from a space of no self-love, having auto accommodated a rape type scenario at 13 that just threw me into cognitive dissonance, but I didn't want to get in trouble. I thought I was being safe, but what it did was it really shifted my magnetism and sent me on a whirlwind of chaos and toxic timelines that I've navigated myself back to, and also dissolving the shadow contracts with the collective hive mind, social conditioning, rules, and belief systems, because every single individuated one of us, we are free to live and create as the sovereign beings that we innately are. But we've been severely programmed and conditioned to believe otherwise. So now's the time to become aware of these programs, to become aware of the gaps in our auric field, right? To become aware of what pulls us out of harmony with ourselves, because now's the time to integrate that and start walking in sovereignty. So I do one-on-one private readings for anyone who is interested. I work on a donation basis, guys. So if you would like to, become aware of where you maybe hold shadow contracts with yourself, become aware of what gaps are in your auric field that may be, pulling you out of harmony, and become aware of, just become aware. Maybe you've been on this journey for a minute. Maybe you're an empath and you resonate with empath and Heyoka and starseed, but perhaps you're still struggling with something in your now reality and you can't quite figure it out, and you've done all the work, or you've done this and you've done that, and you've been all in that spiritual new age, for a minute, and you're still struggling, right? Because you can't quite figure it out. Hit me up. Hit me up. I'd be honored to, share space with you, and we can pull your human design, look at that. What stories are pulling you out of attunement? Where are you open? And we can look at your cellular metaphysics too, and give you a list of foods to start integrating into your daily lifestyle and habits. And, I love assigning homework as well. Yeah, that's my forte. So if you're ready to step up, become a master of yourself, integrate your traumas, and really start walking in sovereignty, so you're no longer living in fear, you're ready to live in love, but you don't know what to do next, yeah, hit me up. You can find me at www.healingroots.life. And for everyone else, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. I love you. I love you. I love you. Live, love, be the light. Namaste.